This week on the Documentary Review Podcast, Jonathan and I go digging in the dirt for our discussion of this week's documentary, the 2014 film Atari Game Over. Welcome to the podcast. I am PT.
And I'm Jonathan. Glad you can join us this week.
Indeed, indeed. All right, let's get right into it, Jonathan. I don't want to waste time. Tell us about this documentary.
All right, Atari Game Over. It's basically the documentary and kind of becomes obsessed with this urban legend of Atari dumping possibly millions of copies of E.T., the game that theoretically ended the reign of Atari, into the desert. And he kind of searches to find out if this is an urban legend. You know, it's something kind of looked up online, and it's kind of grown into a big mythology. And he starts to dig into, so to speak, if this is true. They have basically garbage archaeologists that are trying to solve the mystery of these cassettes of ET on the old Atari 2600 system. And he kind of follows around the backstory of, did this really end Atari, and who created the game, and you find out what that world kind of was and what led to it.
Nice. Love it. All right, so what'd you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down to Atari? Are you going to bring back Atari in a resurgence, or are you going to tell them game over for good?
Well, I definitely wish I could have worked for Atari. I think the documentary, I'm going to have to give, man, I think I'm going to go with the thumbs down on Atari Game Over, the documentary.
Good deal. Yeah, I'll give it thumbs up. I liked it.
All right.
Good deal. So a little background here. First of all, this was apparently, according to the trivia section of IMDb at least, this was meant to be the first episode of a 6-episode TV show called Signal to Noise that was going to be kind of all about video game history. But it was financed by this one segment of Xbox that was shut down by Microsoft in the middle of the making of this episode. So they were like, but they're already like mostly done with this episode, so they just decided to continue making this and put it out as a documentary. But there could have been more if only things didn't happen. So the director of the movie is Zach Penn, who is one of the more successful writers in Hollywood. He co-wrote The Avengers. He's written a crap ton of superhero movies and other movies as well.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting that he took a little break from writing movies to go make a documentary about Atari.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, probably one of the things when you have a certain amount of money, you're just like, yeah, what do I want to do today? I guess I'll make a documentary.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how life goes when you're at that level.
He also co-made. Gosh, what was it called? They talked about it.
In the documentary. It was a documentary about the Loch Ness monster. I don't know what the actual name was.
We didn't review that, did we?
No.
All right, I've seen it. It's good.
But that's with he co-directed it with Werner Herzog, right?
Yes,
that's pretty awesome. So it's probably a good one.
Mm-hmm. And he also co-wrote Werner Herzog's film Rescue Dawn, that side note, that's a crazy, like, if you ever get the chance to watch, like, it's about his friend who was a prisoner of war in Vietnam, and he made a documentary about his friend, and then he also made like the fictional film starring like Christian Bale as his friend. So interesting to watch those two side by side. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, totally.
So I liked the overall like setup of this movie, the way it was kind of, they had the ET thing. I mean, they focused a lot on the ET thing, but that was definitely, in some ways, it was kind of a framing device to talk about Atari history, and you got like a lot of the history of Atari and a lot of the from the heyday to kind of the downfall of it. So I thought that was cool. I liked the way it was put together.
Yeah, I think maybe that's why I had to go with the thumbs down on this one, is because, like, right away, the Atari Game Over thing, I really wanted to know how Atari ended. So I was kind of on the edge of my seat the whole documentary to be like, because I knew it wasn't because they dumped a bunch of ET cartridges in the desert, that I assumed that ET, especially like when they're going on, because they start to get the backstory and they're like, yeah, we saw what, coin operated machines could be. And then we made like $3 million. And then 4 years later, we're making like $50 million a year. And
Right.
then we, made home video games. We were making $500 million a year, the most successful company in the world. And then at the end, they're like, "Yep," but then there were some bad decisions. So it all, just imploded, I guess. They didn't really there was even that much description into what
Right. Well, I
happened.
think the whole to jump right to the end, but I think their whole
Well,
point is like, yeah, it was really super complex. Downfall,
yeah,
like of any business, you can't really sum it up in like a quick little urban legend is a
r-
complex thing.
right. But that's what I was kind of hoping. That's what I wanted to see in this that I didn't get to see at all was, you know, what was that, what was that downfall? What complexities were in it? What was involved? What did they think the root of the problem was? Because it was so, and and the buildup made it even worse for me because I was like, the whole time I'm thinking like, this company is amazing. It's killing it. It's the cutting edge of a whole new industry. And then they're just like, yeah, like 5 minutes left. They touch on it briefly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So,
um, yeah, I guess if you were into it for that, there probably wouldn't have been
yeah,
super,
no. So
super satisfying.
if you're going into it, like, expecting to find out what happened to Atari, and you're gonna be like me, be pretty
I mean,
disappointed.
yeah, I mean, I think they definitely like alluded to it though. They're like, well, we produced way too many 2600s, and then the market was already saturated, and made like a bunch of bad decisions, and made a bunch of tried to expand in markets that were unprofitable. Basically, from that little speech, I was like, all right, I've heard enough of that. I don't need to know any more of the business complexities of that. That sounds pretty boring. Let's get back to ET.
All right, well that's funny. Oop, can you hear me, PT? Having a
Yeah,
little
I can
technical
hear you.
difficulty. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was not enough of an explanation for me. It was like, uh, yeah, now I want to see how you tore through, a $500 million surplus in basically a year, and went from 10,000 employees. I mean, stuff like that makes sense. They got 10,000 employees and they only needed 2,000. Yeah, sure, but again, I would like to have seen the real backstory of that, see the players involved, who made those bad decisions. You know, where were the execs in it? What were like, were they cranking out just tons of crappy games and people stopped buying them? And even so, I mean, there's tons of crappy games that come out now. Doesn't seem to implode Xbox and PlayStation. But anyway, so yes, that's. But now we can rewind all the way
Yeah,
back to the
yeah. I guess
beginning.
that whole thing to me was like that was kind of where they got to the point where they're like, is this going to be a movie about business or is this going to be a movie about video games? And they definitely stuck on the video games side of that, which was cool with me. I didn't really want to watch a movie about business, so
Right. Yeah.
that was
Nice.
cool with that.
Well, cool.
Um, yeah. So ET apparently, if first of all, have you ever heard of this urban legend?
No, never heard of it before this documentary. That there was you. Have you ever?
I hadn't heard of it until like I'd heard of the ET game and how terrible that was, but I had not heard of the burial thing until like I saw it in the news, like when they uncovered it or whatever, as happens later in the documentary.
Right. I
Um,
I thought it was kind of funny that I don't recall ever playing the ET video game. Did you?
no, I mean I think it was before our like it would have been like what 83 or something. So
Yeah, but I remember playing like Pitfall and stuff like that on Atari when I was a little kid, and River Run. I remember playing that, and I
yeah,
mean they
River
were
Run
like,
was great.
yeah, see, yeah. So I mean like I think like those, like you said, it was 83, so I probably didn't play them until like 85 ish or something like that. But there's still Atari 2600s running around in people's houses in a bunch of games. So
Yeah, I think maybe that's the point where like it kind of reaches like there's a certain um like if you were to play like the PlayStation 3 games right now, like there's still people still have them and still play the games, but basically only the good games like are kind of like
right,
stood
true.
the couple years of test of time or whatever kind of thing.
Right.
So maybe that's
And plus, like, I'm sure the other big problem for them, I wonder what year Nintendo came out. It had to have been like not long after Atari.
yeah, I think it was like 85. I want to
Yeah,
say.
something like that. So just like 3 years, 2 years after Atari. And I mean, and that was like a light year jump. So it wasn't like, because now, like Halo 1, which came out, what, 13 years ago or something like that, pretty long time ago, is definitely has worse graphics than Halo 4. But other than that, it's pretty much the same game.
All right.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of difference. There's an online play version, but other than that, it's the same game. It's a first person shooter. They're using the same weapons you're using. and that one that came out, a decade prior to the other one. There weren't like, but when Atari was around, there were monumental jumps. When you
Right.
went, over the course of 2 years, you went from a little dot on a screen going back and forth to, Frogger jumping across the logs. And that's pretty night and day difference.
All right.
So yeah.
Yeah, but I did feel for the guys when they were like talking about how like, man, we were the ones who like came up with all the concepts or that are still in use. Like 3 lives, that was us. We came up with people having 3 lives. That was our whole thing. And, driving a spaceship, that was us. It's
Yeah.
pretty crazy. And now like that industry is bigger than the movie industry, and I'm sure those guys aren't getting a cutback for coming
Oh
up
no,
with the
yeah.
idea of 3 lives.
Yeah. Not only are they not getting a cut of anything, I'm sure they're obviously not credited with it.
All right.
I mean, maybe if you're a video game programmer, you might know of them or whatever, but
All right.
yeah, that's kind of a bummer. Like legendary guys in an industry that just disappeared.
All right. Yeah. So one thing they talk about a lot in the history of it is kind of the culture of Atari, and they kind of call it a prototypical Silicon Valley kind of company. It definitely seems that way, like the whole like work extremely hard, play extremely hard kind of thing that is still like the cornerstone of culture at like Google and all the Silicon Valley kind of companies, where it seemed like they just had a lot of crazy parties and kind of let the creatives do their thing and whatever they needed to do as long as they kept coming up with awesome stuff.
Yeah, that's cool, and I think they took it to an extreme there, where it was really more so. I mean, much more so than Google today. But I don't know if they were the flagship of Silicon Valley. I mean, like IBM had already existed for quite a while, and there were a lot of great companies that had kind of come out of Silicon Valley
Oh yeah,
by
yeah,
that point in time in the
but
80s.
but IBM was like a stuffy, shirt and tie kind of
True,
company.
those were definitely the
This was like the what I meant by this cornerstone of Silicon Valley was that the whole culture that you see today in Silicon Valley.
right where they, yeah, I see what you mean, where they let the creatives be creatives, like you
Yeah,
said.
yeah, and it's like if you go to like I've been to a couple companies in San Francisco area, and like you walk in and there's just video games everywhere. There's like beanbag chairs everywhere. It's like you're like, but this does not seem like a real company. This is not what my company looks like. That's like the whole the aesthetic, it's like open floor plan, everybody being crazy, and oh yeah, you got to work like a million insane hours, but also you gotta let's have some fun here too.
That's cool. I'd love to see a business like that, see how they actually run. I mean,
Yeah,
could work. I
yeah.
guess it does.
I mean, I think um, the thing I've always heard at least about this company is yeah, you have all that cool stuff, but you're also like if your boss sends you a text at 3 a.m. and you don't answer it in 5 minutes, he's going to be on the phone yelling at you. Like they expect basically total dedication in your entire life dedicated to the work.
Huh. I'd be out. I feel like that's dumb.
Yeah,
You can keep your beanbag chair.
I give my own beanbag chair.
That's right.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, so they go to. Man, I should have written down what the name of the town was. I don't know, some town in like New Mexico or something.
Yeah,
Right?
let's start with an A, Amadosa or something like that.
Yeah, sure. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so there's this local dude who was super into trying to figure out. I want to know like how did he figure out like where the dump? Like he'd been working for years to figure out like where in the dump. But
No, I kind of got that. They alluded to how he did it. So there were two pictures taken on the actual day of the dump. So like one was a shot of the dump itself, or of like them doing the dumping, and then the other shot was a picture of the person taking that picture. So you could essentially like triangulate
right,
the actual dump location by finding things in the background of those two images that you can only get from two specific angles,
right,
and then coordinate that, and then plus they had like some clues. Every area of the dump kind of had its own coordinate and dumping system, but
right.
certainly it took them a lot of time and a lot of work to figure out exactly where it was, and it was pretty impressive because he
Yeah.
did.
What do you
It's
think of the whole? What do you think this? What do you think of this whole venture Are you a big waste of time? Or are you
Oh
for it?
yeah, huge waste of time. Like I couldn't even maybe that I couldn't wrap my mind around like when they're like, yeah, this guy's going to the city council and they're like debating it and he spent 3 years working on this project and obviously it's going to cost a decent amount of money. They had to rent some heavy earth moving equipment and get the permits and I was just thinking like I mean like it seems so worthless to me especially because I'd never heard of this urban legend about
All right.
dumping a bunch of ET games. And then even after I heard that legend in thing, I was like, yeah, what? I mean, I guess I don't care, or if I did, I'd rather just keep it that legend that there's 4 million ET cartridges dumped out in the desert somewhere.
All right.
Um, yeah, so yeah, I thought it was a colossal waste of time. But apparently, a lot of people didn't. I mean, tons of people showed up to just watch them dig in the dump.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could see it. It's like I don't know. It's like the like a very foundational thing of this whole industry or whatever. So like, I'm not like a huge video game guy, but if I was like man, they dumped a whole bunch of copies of the first first book ever written in this place, I'd be like, oh man, we got to check that out. So I guess for people who are like super into video games, I could see where it would be something they'd want to track down, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so.
Um, speaking of people who are really into video games, so man, Ernest Cline was in this documentary. I was not expecting that. He's he's an author. He wrote this book called Ready Player One, which is like it's a
Oh
pretty
yeah.
cool book. It's like this basically it's like this guy in this like kind of semi near type future. He like created this like Facebook type thing, but it's like a virtual reality game that basically everyone plays. Like you go to school in this game, it's a super big thing. But anyway, the guy when he dies, the guy who invented it, he leaves his fortune. He says like anyone who can solve this crazy treasure hunt he put in the game gets his fortune, and like the clues and everything are all like totally based around 80s pop culture in the game. So like in the world of the book, like everybody's super obsessed with 80s pop culture because like everyone for like 20 years has been trying to solve this mystery and all this stuff. Um, but anyway, so that author is like obviously super into 80s geeky stuff. He drives a DeLorean, which that DeLorean he actually gave away. There was that's another cool thing about the book is within the book there was a hidden puzzle that he was going to give the DeLorean to whoever solved that puzzle. And, like
Oh,
6 months ago, someone solved the puzzle. And he gave him his DeLorean. So
oh, that's pretty cool.
yeah,
I thought that guy I thought was hilarious because that guy owned being a dork. Like
right,
no one's business. He was
right,
pretty funny because yeah, one he had his DeLorean, which is I mean it's a little bit cool, but definitely pretty dorky. And I think
right.
he had a flux capacitor in it too, if I recall from yeah. So then that just definitely took it from like being a cool car collector thing to super dorky. But then he went on his super ultra dorky road trip, and he was so like the thing that made it so cool was he was so legitimately proud of his road trip, and like, yeah, yeah. He also I
Yeah.
was curious. He at some point in there he swung by and he met George R. R. Martin or whatever that.
Yeah, well, that was the start of his road trip. He's like, I gotta go get my DeLorean because George R. R. Martin borrowed it, so I gotta go get it from him, and
Oh,
then
he.
and then
I
I'll
didn't know.
start
I
my,
didn't hear that part
start my
where that
road
he
trip
George
from.
R. R. Martin had borrowed his DeLorean, which is
Yeah,
so
it's
weird.
apparently for some like screening that of Back to the Future that George R. R. Martin hosted or something. Um, but yeah, yeah, yeah. That guy's pretty cool. He definitely has built his career on being a super big like 80s pop culture dork, and now like the weird I don't know, like symmetry of the movie or whatever is that now Steven Spielberg is making a movie of his book, Ready Player One. So it's like
Oh wow,
kind of weird. It's all coming full
that's
circle, man.
yeah. That must be blowing his mind.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, that guy was super dorky, and he like had a big ET in the passenger seat of his
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. But
DeLorean too.
again, that's what like I was like, wow, this guy is amazing because when he had like the ET, like he went and bought an ET that sat in the passenger seat with him on his road trip to go stand in the dump
All
and
right,
watch him dig up a video game. He's like jamming out in his thing, and you could tell he's like thinking like, man, I can't believe how cool this is. I've got my ET and my DeLorean that I'm driving
right.
in the dump to find ET. It's like, wow, this guy rules.
I, I agree.
So anyway.
Yep. I'm just impressed with anyone who can like make a career out of just like loving 80s pop culture. Good on him. Good
Yeah,
there.
totally. Yeah, yeah, good for him. I'm happy for that dude.
So yeah, so then they go have their big excavation and like a bunch of nerds show up. There's a lot of people standing around the dump.
Oh yeah, yeah. And what the other guy we got to rewind and talk about is the actual programmer that
Right.
made ET.
Yeah, his
Who?
name is I'll tell you in a second.
Yeah, I'll talk about some of the things he's done while you look up his name. So he also
Okay,
did.
so
You got it.
yeah, it's Howard Scott Warshaw.
There we go. Howard Warshaw, and he made a bunch of video games for Atari, and did a really good job at making them. He made
Yeah,
Yard's Revenge, and he made. They did scroll through a bunch of the stuff he made, and they're all really good games or memorable games.
right.
Um, and that guy had an ego on him, like almost no one I've ever seen.
I see where you're coming from. I didn't really think that except for like when they showed the videotapes of the old of like him back in the olden days. I definitely got the feeling that yeah, he's kind of a egomaniac. But I didn't get that feel from him like in the modern times as much. I
Really, you
feel like
didn't?
he's
I
been
mean, like,
humbled a little bit.
yeah, you could tell he'd been humbled, but like even when he'd been humbled, he was like, yeah, I mean, like, it brings back a lot of memories. I was totally born to do, program games for Atari, and you know, like the things he was basically like, yeah, I'm pretty much arguably the best video game guy ever. Every single video game I made was a huge success, and like, he definitely had no sense of or doubt in any of his like anything about himself from that era.
Yeah, maybe so.
There were a couple lines I wish I would have written them down where I was like, wow, I was like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not against being a total egotist. You think you're great. I suppose that's a good thing, but he definitely thought he was great.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't get that from him. Like when he said the thing about that's what I was born to do, I took that more just like a how when you find your niche and you're like, oh, this fits me perfectly. I didn't take it to be like, yeah, I was the best in the freaking universe and everyone else.
I don't know. That was the vibe I got from him, but
Yeah,
maybe I'm off. But anyway,
he does. But
I
yeah,
don't. Yeah, because even then when he's like, when like everybody's hanging out in the dump to dig up this thing, he always equated it back to like, yeah, who knew what I did 30 years ago could generate all this? Everything like just came back to him. Like the way he referred to everything was brought back to like, oh, what the root of all this was? That too. That's what the root of all this. And then even like, yeah, and even when he was like, well, the one game that I made that, wasn't quite like so amazing or whatever was ET. But George Lucas proved that, so it really went through him. I wouldn't quite take the fault for that. I would
we're
say
great.
that, or
I took that all to be like man, he's been like for years he was like the target of destroying the video game industry. Um, and that's like him just now getting the chance to talk in a documentary and be like, hey man, look, I did some cool stuff too. And it sucks that the industry is ignoring me that I helped birth. So
yeah,
I didn't feel like he was overly egotistical. I thought he was appropriately egotistical.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I think that he did some amazing things, and like, even if he was a super egomaniac, I think he deserves it. I'm not trying to knock him down. I'm just saying he was one, but
Right.
and rightfully so. I suppose if I helped birth an industry, like you said, and although I felt really bad too that when Atari closed, he was just like, after like, what a great resume. That you were like, yeah, I was a video game programmer for Atari. I made all these amazing games and ET, and I would like a new job.
Yeah, I think it was just so like already in the culture that like hey, ET brought down Atari that they were like, well, that's the guy who brought down Atari. We're not hiring him.
Yeah, yeah, maybe I would. Yeah, and maybe I don't know the state of. Like I said, Nintendo came out really quick after that, so there was still obviously like a ton of video game stuff going on. He probably could have. I would have thought found another
Yeah,
spot in the world.
I think so, but no, he moved on and did
Did
a
a bunch
bunch
of
of other
crappy
weird stuff.
stuff and was
Yeah,
sad about it all for 30
yeah,
years. But now he's found something cool again.
yeah. Now he's like a
It's
psychologist or something.
yeah,
He's like, finally,
yeah,
I'm back on top, baby. Woo!
nice. Good for him.
Everything's coming up, Warsaw.
I would totally let that guy be my psychologist if I had a psychologist. Be
Yeah.
like, you're absolutely, dude. You get the gig.
Yeah, so the whole story of ET was basically like they basically just had to make it really fast, and he like put his hand up in the air, which definitely the cautionary tale made me think. Maybe that's part of why I didn't think he was an egotist either, because I was like totally identified him with him a lot, and like that story, like they, he kind of put his hand up and sort of volunteered. Sort of, they asked him, "Could you do this?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." Which is the kind of stuff I do at work all the time. Whenever there's an impossible deadline that everybody else is like, "Oh, I don't know," I'm always like, Psh, "I'll do it." Then I do it. So that's sure to bring me down someday.
That's funny. See, because I kind of thought that even that part I thought was him being a total egotist with like where they're like, no, they're like, oh my gosh, we need this done in 5 weeks, and everyone's like, it's impossible. He's like, not for me, not for me, man. That might be impossible for other people.
Right, right.
And that was the way I took that too. It was like, wow, what an egomaniac. Like, oh, yeah, anyone else would take 6 months to do this. 5 weeks, plenty of time for me, man. No worries.
Yeah, totally. I took that as like, man, what a great guy. He's really putting us all out there. He's accepting the challenge.
Yes.
I guess I bought into corporate culture too much.
I guess, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base, but I really like that's really how I interpreted it. Because even when he says it, he says it in that manner. Like they're like, yeah, they asked if you could do it in 5 weeks, and they were like, that's impossible. It was basically like, I didn't think not possible for me, kind of a thing, like.
Right.
And he did make it. I mean, he did hit his deadline.
Sure.
He made a video game in 5 weeks.
Sure. And yeah, he met with Spielberg a couple times, and Spielberg was like, "Can't you just make it like Pac-Man?" And he was like, "No, I'm going to create a brand new world. It's going to be amazing."
Right. Again, how can you not think he's an egomaniac when Steven Spielberg is like, "Hey, I made this awesome movie, and I'm a pretty legendary guy already, and I'm just going to throw out a suggestion for you." And the guy's like, "Steven Spielberg." No. Why don't we do it my way? Because I think I know a little better than you. That takes an ego.
He did know better than Steven Spielberg about video games.
I'm not saying he didn't, but I think a lot of guys in his same position would be like, "Yes, Mr. Spielberg, I'll make it like Pac-Man."
Right, probably so.
So I mean, I'm not calling him wrong, and I'm just trying to be honest, man.
Fair enough. So yes, then he created this game, and it was really hard. It's weird that like the some video games go down in history for like they're like positively in history for how hard they are, and some go down negatively in history for how hard they are.
Right. Well, I think that's the fine line of what makes a good video game in a lot of ways. If you can just ride that razor's edge of being just really like I because of other documentary we did, because of Indie Game, I went out and got Super Meat Boy.
Oh, nice.
And that game it perfectly rides that line.
Nice.
Where it's so difficult, but you can do it. It might take you like 50 tries, but it can be done. And like, and then that 50th try, when you do it, you're just like, yes, oh my gosh, I did this. Nice. But it just finds that perfect balance where it doesn't quite take it too far, but it takes it right up to the edge of it. And I haven't played ET, but I'm assuming it takes it past that edge.
Right. Apparently, according to some, it does. So yeah, so it was well, it was kind of like a big hit at first, and then people started like returning it and stuff and being like, "Hey, this is crappy."
Yeah, I think that seemed to be, and I wish they would have gone into the exact numbers of it.
Right.
It's sold because ET was huge, and that was the beginning, really. Well, one of the first cross-marketing kind of video game movie things, and ET was obviously a huge movie. So everybody bought their kid ET Atari game for Christmas because that was the 5-week deadline. That's why it was such a fast deadline, because they wanted to hit that Christmas release.
Right.
And then apparently a lot of people said this game sucks.
Right. Man, the one statement that I disagreed with the most in the whole documentary was someone, and I don't remember who it was, but someone who was like, yeah, they were just out to grab the money, and anytime you do anything to like just make money and try to squeeze more money out of something, it's not going to be successful. I wanted to be like, dude, have you been to like the box office lately and seen like all the all the sequels. Notice like all the Transformer movies out there. Like pretty sure those are all for the money and also successful.
Yeah.
Granted, not a good artistic reason to do things, but you know, it's not like you can. It's impossible to make money doing it like that kind of
Right.
thing.
They didn't make Frogger because they thought, wow, we just want to make a piece of art. You know, it doesn't matter what if it makes any money or not. They were like, let's make a game that makes a lot of money. And they
All right,
made Frogger and they made Pitfall and they made Super Mario Brothers. All those things were in pursuit of a lot of money.
all right,
So yeah, I'm right on board with you. People do stuff all the time solely for money and make something cool.
yeah, yeah. Um, all right, cool. So then they did some digging.
Digging,
What did they
digging.
find?
First, a lot of garbage and a lot of wind and a lot
Right.
of acid. But eventually, some Atari games
Wonder how
that
many of
apparently are.
the wonder how many of the nerds who came out and were like waiting in that dump after a couple hours. Like, man, this was a really boring idea. This why did we come out here? That was a bad idea. Why did we
I'm
drive so
sure
far?
all
But
of
we
them.
gotta wait it out. We gotta wait it out.
Yeah, especially because it looked like the winds and the dust were horrible. So
Right.
yeah, I'm sure at the end when they walked away with the copy of you know ET that was all busted up, they had to be like, "Wow, what was I thinking?"
Right. So this is magical timing. Yesterday, Rolling Stone did an article um, on this very thing. And well, do we have anything else to say, I guess, about the movie before we get into the update from Rolling Stone magazine?
No, the only like the other thing that I kind of like was mad about in the documentary was so like it starts off basically trashing the heck out of ET, the video game, and it shows all these people playing it and a bunch of like top 10 worst video game of all time list, and it's consistently on them. And these people are playing the game and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this game's so horrible."
That's right.
And then they kind of wuss out at the very end and they're like, "Yeah, ET wasn't really that bad. And, there's way worse video games." And I was like,
Right.
"Oh, well, that kind of like fickleness at the end just to be like, yay, good ending." It's like,
Right.
oh no, it was already cool without that. You shouldn't have gone back and done that. So that part of the documentary really turned me off too.
Fair enough. I think part of the deal, like what I'd always heard about ET, was that it was so hard to find. Like, so I think part like a lot of the people who put it on their worst lists had like never played it and stuff like that. But I could see where you're coming from on that.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to hear the update on what happened with these
Yes. Let's
games?
find. Let's.
All right. So as was shown in the last shot was like a Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of homage shot of them boxing up the video games. The city ended up owning these video games that were found, okay, and they put them up for auction, and so they have raised or the total of the ones they've sold so far is $108,000 they've raised for the city from auctioning off these games, and they are keeping they're keeping about 300 copies to sell at a later date. So there you go. Made some money for the city at least.
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that guy got a big pat on the back then. The garbage archaeologist guy that
Yeah.
fought for 3 years. I'm sure they were like, "Oh wow, we totally were just going to tell that guy no." I'm sure $100,000 in that city is a ton of money for their annual budget.
Yep.
So good on them.
Yeah. And I guess it did not go to a video game museum like that one guy hoped, unless they
I
were the
hope
ones who bought
right.
But
I hope some of the copies did.
yeah.
I mean that is a piece of video game history, and then plus it's got this whole legend, and now it's like, yeah, it should totally go in a video game museum. I mean, 5 of the 1,000 copies or whatever they
Right.
dug up.
Crazy. All right. Cool. All right. Well, how many stars are you going to give this bad boy?
I'm gonna give it 2.5 out of 5.
Okay.
So really it would be like 2.4. But
Whoa.
I'm
Can't be that
just so anyway, yeah.
2.473.
Well, I was just like, well, technically I gave it a thumbs down, and 2.5 is like
All right.
neutral, so just slightly below neutral.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, I'm gonna give it. I would give it like 4 stars. I think I liked it a lot.
Wow.
I
Okay.
think that to me it was like a really cool like love letter to the Atari and like that whole time of pop culture, and I thought it worked well. I thought
Cool.
so. There you go.
All right.
So
How about some choices for next week? You up for
yeah,
that?
let's do it.
All right. I think I have some written down. Let me see.
Sweet.
Yeah, I got a couple, and first one is going to be Race to Nowhere, which kind of caught my attention. I had a big discussion about the educational system in America, and then I saw this, which Race to Nowhere focuses on the potential negative impact of our parents' mounting obsession with kids' academic results. So, just
Right
kind of
on.
curious about that. The next one is Easter Island, Mystery of a Lost World, which is obviously about Easter Island and theories about the culture there and what happened to it, I suppose. I haven't seen any of these, by the way.
Okay.
And then I was starting to think about history and mankind, so I also went with Cave of Forgotten Dreams, which I'm curious about. A documentary that focuses on a cave in France. It contains the oldest known human painted images on Earth.
Nice.
So I'm curious about how old those are and how much history we really have as a
Right.
species. Anyway, there's your choices.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I'm interested in the cave painting one. I think that's a Werner Herzog one too.
Oh,
So
then
I'm
it's
curious about
almost
that.
guaranteed to be good.
Yeah. But I don't. Yeah, I'm really. Oh, sorry, I just hit my microphone.
Okay, calm down.
I'm so excited. I'm really curious about the Road to Nowhere one because I had that on my potential list too. Yeah, I don't know. I almost feel like I've been broken for those types of issue documentaries though, because I feel like we've watched so many now that I could see behind the curtain. I'm like, like, all right, they're going with this format, eh? All right, it's pretty much the same. Here's where they're going to show a fact. All right, they're going to show a fact, aren't they? Just show the fact. Oh, how about some talking heads? How about a touching story? All right. But you know what? I'm gonna give it the chance to melt my cold heart. Let's go with the Road to Nowhere. So interesting topic.
Race to Nowhere.
Race to Nowhere.
There we go. Or road. It's like a race.
Right. Yeah, road. You could look up road. You won't find it.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So Race to Nowhere. We will be back to see that next week. My semi-related thing to recommend this week is the guy Warshaw got kind of shamed in this week's documentary. I'm gonna recommend the book by John Ronson called "So You've Been Publicly Shamed," and it's about he's a really funny writer. He goes and tracks down all these people who've been publicly shamed for some reason or another, and like tries to figure out the ones who've coped with it, the ones who haven't. He really focuses on especially people who've been called out on like social media. Like there's the one girl who like took her picture at like Arlington Cemetery, like where it says like silence and respect or whatever, and she was like flipping them off, and like took a picture, and like she lost her job and all kinds of horrible stuff happened to her, and all these death threats and stuff because that.
Wow.
But anyway, it focuses on a bunch of those kind of stories and how to best deal with being publicly shamed. So I recommend
wonder
that.
how far I could read into that book while drinking a beer. I'll have to try that and see how.
You should. That'd be a sweet way.
Yeah.
If only someone would do that.
Right, like just like a guy, a book and a beer or something. Yeah. I don't know.
How many of each though would you recommend?
Probably one guy, one book, one beer.
Nice. It's a marketable idea.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so we'll be back next week for the race
to nowhere.
Race to Nowhere. So find out if it can defy my issue documentary Jaded Heart or not. It's going to be great. All right, we'll talk to you next time. Until then, this is PT. Keep it real.
This is Jonathan. We'll see you next week.
Peace.